But good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session hosted by myself, Mark Charlton, and Professor Heather McLaughlin, PVC Community and Civic Engagement, and Dean of Business and Law. We're really excited to present this session, and I'm going to talk for the first through the first few slides, which is really about what we've been doing over the past 12 months and how we've started to frame our teaching to support the civic effort when hopefully we reach a stage where we'll start recovering from the pandemic. So I'm going to share my slides, but I really did want to say that I would take this like a celebration of who we are and what we've achieved, and a lot of this stuff's gone under the radar. So today I'm really delighted that Heather and I can put some of this out there and tell you collectively what we've achieved as a university, because I think it says a lot about us. And also I would say that well, in fact, I'll just put my slides up and you can make your own assessment. But I think everyone's done so well to move their teaching online and support our students, and much of this work has gone on in the background on top of all the brilliant work that our lecturers and our researchers have done. So our title is Learning with Social Impact: How We Responded to the Needs of the City During the COVID-19 Pandemic. This is an ongoing project which might take some time, I think, because we're not even in the recovery stage, but we have positioned the university as poised to support the recovery of the city and the communities that live in it. So I'll talk about the context of DMU and our initial COVID-19 response. I'll talk about the SDG 16 hub and the Build Back Better campaign and the models of collaboration that have emerged from that. And then Heather's going to talk us through the great work that's been going on around service learning, how we're embedding this work, how you can get involved. And then there's a chance for you to put questions in the chat, which we will be delighted to answer at the end. So yeah, please ask away with your questions. It's always difficult on this side of the camera because I've got no idea what the reception is on the other side. So if you ask some good questions, at least I know you've listened to some of it. So the DMU context, and I will say there should be a beautiful picture on here, but not. Can
you share the slides, Mark? They're not.
Oh, that's strange.
Showing.
Can you see that? No.
No.
Right, let's try again. Here we go. This.
These things never happen in rehearsal.
No, they don't. Hopefully you pointed it out, Heather, because I was just aware that only I could see the slides. Yeah, so let me put that into share mode.
Great.
Well, as you can see, there's no picture on it anyway, and I was just going to comment that no good pictures have been taken in the last 12 months, apart from people on computers, so we're probably not missing too much here. But I will say that we're 150 years old and we've been in the city centre for all of that time, and I think that that's a really important part of the university's identity. We're about to be 151, I know, but it's been a great year of celebration, albeit one that we spent in lockdown and not collectively together. But being a university in the centre of a city gives it its own perspective, and we've always been there for the City of Leicester, and we've shaped our courses for the City of Leicester. And we have provided a workforce with skills for throughout that time. We're also a post-92 institution, which is something that is to be celebrated. I think we are able to. It makes us a very public-facing institution and makes us responsive to the needs of our city and the industries that work within it. It also makes us responsive to the communities of our city and their needs. And we've always had a vision of applying our skills and our knowledge to support those different communities and helping our city to progress. And this is all part of a big civic mission that the university has had. We also have an incredible diversity, which is something that I know as staff we all treasure, but not all universities boast this diversity, and it brings such an amazing vibrancy to our campus, and it reflects the city that we live in. And this is a really important context to our work. And we've got 4 strong faculties and 300 courses. So an amazing resource of knowledge and expertise. And on top of that, and if you kind of package it all together, we've just got incredible community links and partnerships and initiatives which strengthen those links and partnerships. So this is something that makes DMU, in my opinion, very special. And during the pandemic, some of these things have really come to the fore. And as I said before, the teaching at this university has done an incredible and probably an unrecognised piece of work. It doesn't seem hugely valued on social media that teaching's gone online, but actually that's been a really important and remarkable achievement to maintain and increase levels of standards of teaching during the pandemic. And while people have been doing that, they've also been contributing to this. So in the immediate aftermath of the lockdown, we had 200 staff and students join a humanitarian response for the city, and those staff and students were distributing foods and medicines from food banks and local charity organisations. We fast-tracked nurses to the NHS. We gave up health equipment and PPE and gave them to our local hospitals. We gave PCR machines to the Royal Army Medical Corps so they could use them at testing stations across the country. We created from scratch a regional PPE distribution centre. Within that centre, we distributed PPE that was donated by other organisations and also created by the Faculty of Chem and the Faculty of ADH. And again, that's a remarkable achievement. The watershed where all of this activity took place is now a testing centre for COVID-19. And through all of this work, students were involved in these activities, and our staff were involved in these activities. And this, as you probably are acutely aware, is not part of anybody's day job. We just did this because this is the type of university that we are. We then received an approach by Leicester City Council, who said we need to start thinking about how we recover from the pandemic, and would the university be interested in leading a project which identified the ways in which we could recover from the pandemic. Now, when we started this in March, we thought we'd be starting our recovery to this in September 2020. We're now in February 2021 and we're still in complete lockdown. So forgive me if progress on this is slow, but we haven't even started the recovery process. But nevertheless, we've delivered on the goal to deliver a model to which we believe the city can recover better. And because we're a university which is the UK's only SDG hub, and also the world's only SDG hub for SDG 16, we used United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals frameworks to devise a recovery model for the city. We led a mass consultation, so we included all of our communities, our business community, the general public through the local media, and our around 70 academics took part as well, and came up with 300 ideas for how the city could recover better, which was then drilled down into 30 policy recommendations for the Mayor's office in its recovery. And I'm really proud to say that of those 30 recovery policy suggestions, 29 have subsequently been adopted by the local authority. So this is quite, I think this says something about how on the money our academics have been in leading this work. DMU has a special role in this now, in that it's using its role as a connection between the community and the organisation, between the university and the local authority, to actually start achieving some of these recommendations that were put forward. And we, as part of this programme, we identified the use of service learning as a teaching method in the university was growing, and this could be attached to the project and add additional capacity to the already strong social capital of the university, and how we can get students to work to benefit others outside of the organisation. And Heather will talk a little bit more about service learning and how to get involved for those not too clear on the terminology. So underpinning all of this work has been the Education for Sustainable Development at DMU. When I started out working on the SDG 16 hub, Andrew Reeves and a group of colleagues were already doing some great work in this field. So I've been able to collaborate my work with them to try to push the agenda forward, that students can go and do positive things in their communities as part of their learning and impact the SDGs. This is Andrew's slide, and it's way too complex for me to explain, but there is, I do want to mention that the SDG teaching, DMU was the #1 in the country last year for lecturers taking part in terms of its reach to students, and we'd like to be #1 again. So please go to Andrew's website, which you can Google ESD DMU, and it comes up straight away. But yeah, we'd like to be #1 again, and it's a brilliant project, and there's a huge amount of resource on the project website as well for those wanting to underpin their teaching with sustainable development. So over to you, Heather.
Great, thanks, Mark. And I just want to explore with you some of the ideas around service learning. And the university's seen a lot of growth in this area of service learning. So what do we mean by that? Well, there's a definition there, which is a European Association definition, and it's about pedagogy which integrates community into the curriculum, and this idea of community service. And as Mark's already said, the Centre for Academic Innovation, Education for Sustainable Development and Social Impact and Engagement all support this area of activity. We were one of the first universities to use this as a teaching tool as part of the COVID-19 recovery. And what happened is we went out into the community, and we were given problems to solve, and students, as part of their courses, have been solving some of these problems and really helping the community in that regard. But what we know is there's lots of hidden practice around this service learning, and there's a massive untapped potential within DMU that we really hope to release by increasing awareness of it. Moving on to the next slide. Thanks. So if we look at the pedagogy around service learning, really it incorporates all the experiential learning stuff. And if you look at Kolb 1984, we talk about the conceptualization phase, the exploring the theory, before gathering that concrete experience, that proper experience, that sense of real world, which really improves skills, confidence, applied learning. But equally important is that period of reflection afterwards, and it's through this reflection that students really get to understand the value of what has taken place. So all of those three elements are incredibly important for experiential learning. So in service learning, we incorporate all the benefits of that experiential learning and those three elements, but we add to it reciprocity. And a number of authors have explored this idea around reciprocity: Jacobi, Slodkowski, Reed et al., and many others. And what we mean by that is we're bringing in and developing concepts around ethics, justice, responsibility, which we know really resonate with our students today. So I think we've got a massive opportunity here to explore a lot more around this service learning. And I think I would add to that the potential for boundary spanning. And by boundary spanning, we're looking at bridging the gap between students and academics, and management and organisational learning, but equally boundary spanning across areas of expertise. And I think there's tremendous potential here for interdisciplinary working as part of our service learning. Thanks, Mark. Next slide. So if we look at some of the examples of things that we've been doing at DMU around service learning, there are some great ones to share with you. So for example, students in media and communications developed stories for children that they uploaded as YouTube videos to share with the community. Politics have developed a credit-bearing module working with local charities to solve problems, and they do that in groups of around 5 or 6 students. HLS have delivered sessions to youth programs, and ADH have delivered dance workshops online for young people. And you may all be aware, of course, of the DMU local and what we do there. And we do lots of volunteering. Students do lots of volunteering, around 24,000 volunteering hours a year, typically, is what happens in all sorts of different projects, things like tackling knife crime, school support, feeding Leicester, whole range of different projects which really benefit our community. And some of these projects span international boundaries as well. So we've got some great examples of community learning abroad, and we hope to do more of that, of course, when we're allowed to travel. Thanks, Mark. So I think the challenge we have is embedding service learning. There are some areas where we have embedded it well, and it's credit bearing and assessed, but those particular examples are few and far between. So I think for maximum impact, we need to involve the classroom learning for the concepts, the experience, the reflection, and the reciprocity. And if we look at the sorts of experiences that we could use as part of the curriculum, and we already do, and that's live projects, volunteering, placements. There are all sorts of other examples as well. But I think that the challenge that we have is really incorporating them into our programs and module design. But we do have a great opportunity as we move towards more skills development, authentic assessment, and also interdisciplinarity. And a huge part of how we do this is going to use the resources that we already have within the university around CAI, ESD, and of course the SDG 16 hub. So in summary, just like to highlight that we want to celebrate the levels of community engagement at DMU. And as Mark has already illustrated, this has been particularly important during the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do huge amounts for the community and we're very proud of the work that we do. So building on that strong track record, we can really develop a lot more of it through our research activity and our student learning. The service learning concept has clear benefits for students in the way that they learn, the skills that they develop, and that, you know, their personal development as well. But the challenge is going to be to properly embed it in the curriculum to include assessment and also interdisciplinarity. I think we're on to the next, and just to encourage you to get involved, and if you really want to hear more about this, do contact Mark, follow on Twitter and visit ESD to learn more about their project as well. So thank you very much for listening, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have about this.
We're going to get ready to cut that now.
Can you hear my children? The perils of homeschooling.
Have you got a question, Mark, for us?
Yeah. I think they've heard enough. That's why they're going out. Do
you want to say something, Mark, about how people might get more involved with this if they're thinking of trying to bring some of this into their curriculum, into their modules? Yeah,
so the collaboration that we gave an overview of is between ESD and the Centre of Academic Innovation and the Directorate of Social Impact and Engagement, and we're really bringing different skill sets together. So we've got Kai are looking at how we can embed and assess this type of work and create resources for staff who want to make this, introduce this into their teaching or strengthen the way they do this in their teaching. Because this has been quite an interesting finding in the work we've done so far, is that there's lots of people doing public facing work, but there's not always a mutual benefit at the end of it. But lots of people want to have that mutuality, and so we want to support those who do public-facing things already to strengthen that element of it. We want to underpin it with the Sustainable Development Goals, and that's where Andrew and the team who work on ESD have been really integral in this work. And obviously, from my own personal point of view, we have DMU Local, which I'm not part of anymore, by the way, but I lean on them heavily to do all of my work, and they have a wealth of experience in supporting staff to get out to the community and have that connectivity, but have that ability to have a conversation, to bring a challenge from the community to the university, or take an opportunity from the university into the community. So if people who are listening feel that they could benefit from any of these aspects of it, I would really encourage them to get in touch with me in the first place, and then I can filter down to the appropriate person.
So I think we've got a question: how do we deal with the issues around accreditation in service learning? I'm not quite sure what is meant by that. Are you thinking about assessment and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So this is an interesting challenge that's come to light actually in the work that we've been doing in service learning, because we've found some real strong good practices across the university, at least between 8 or 10 really strong case studies of how this work is being delivered for mutual benefit of society and the student learning. But I think in every case, how it's been assessed has been assessed completely differently. So there's no uniform way of assessing this work. There is, so you mentioned earlier the Politics in Action module. It's a really good module which could be adopted by many courses, because it's very hands-on for the students to interact with the community and come up with the problems and the solutions together. And that's a 30 credit bearing module. In other cases, the students have reflected on what they've learned by working with the community in their dissertations, and ultimately the dissertations being assessed. In some cases, there's been brilliant examples of a mutual benefit where it's been left to chance whether anything's been used in an assessment at all. It's just been a really valuable experience for the students. So we want to keep capturing how this work's been doing, try to support how people assess it, and then ultimately we might have a suite of resources where people can build their own way of approaching this, but fundamentally hitting the 6 aims of the European definition of service learning.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we address the whole issues around assessment, because we want to move more towards authentic assessment, and this is a really great example of authenticity. It's really just trying to find the right ways of assessing, perhaps more formally, but reflection is a great way to do it, certainly.
So I just noticed a comment from John Margerson about SDG 11, Sustainable Cities, and that's absolutely right. That this is hugely relevant, and the great thing about our hub is we focus on SDG 16 initially, but you can't really deliver much within SDG 16 without impacting other areas of SDGs. So I like to tell people that we focus on SDG 16 and all SDGs. So thank you for that comment, John.
Yeah. And interesting one there from Leanne about ethical implications of students working in communities, and it's interesting because we've just set up a university ethics committee now, which will deal with the ethical dimension of community activity as well as research. So yeah, I think it's something that we do need to address as part of the work that we do. That's a good question from Suzanne. Has the local council been able to qualify the amount of support provided by DMU to support them through the pandemic?
I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is no, they haven't. Interestingly, the current piece of work that we have established in terms of the recovery, they are very interested in capturing that, and there's a piece of work that's going to start hopefully in March around gathering the baseline data for that. So as part of that process, I've already submitted the things that I've talked about in this presentation. But actually, this will be an interesting piece of work. Suzanne, if you're interested, I'd be interested in a collaboration to actually try and capture that, or use an evaluation model for it, because when I was drawing up the slides with Heather, I was thinking, do you know what, this is pretty good what we've done here. But when you think about these things in isolation, you don't realise how many parts of society are impacting. But when collectively you're looking at it university wide, then suddenly there's quite a strong story that we're able to tell, and that's why we were really eager to share it with you today.
Yeah, another question about ethical approval. I'm not sure what we do at the moment, Mark, around the ethical approval for the community engagement. But certainly it will start to go through the university committee, but I'm not sure how we approach it now. Does it go through social impact and engagement?
So in terms of the ethical approval only comes to the fore in the case of a specific piece of research being done, and then in that way it would follow the natural expected ethical approval practices. But there are also support by the DMU local team to ensure that there are health and safety measures adhered to, that boundary training and DBS checks and things like that are done. So there is a huge, I say a huge piece of work. I don't want to put people off, but we don't just send people out into the community without the appropriate support. So
yeah, but we probably need to get the processes out there and make and provide a bit more clarity on those, so that it doesn't become a barrier to people doing this, because it's such a valuable experience.
Yeah, I've just had a message. We're over time, so
okay.
Thank you, thank you everyone.
Thanks everyone. Really, really great to talk to you about this, and thanks for your questions.